Jayam Vishnu Padmaham Sabirjakachaya Ashotashat Sri Srimad. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnu Padmaham Sabirjakachaya Ashotashat Sri Srimad. Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Pratharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 8, titled Lord Nrsimhadev Slays the King of the Demons, texts 14 through 16. 14 has no purport, and 15 only has a small one. So I'll read the Sanskrit for everything first, and then repeat in word for 16. Read the translations in purple. Evam durukater muhu ardayan rusha sutamaha bhagavatam mahasura kantam pragyotapitapaya pragyam pragyotapatito varasanat Stambam tada dati bala swamushtina taidva tasmin nidadu tepishano abhuvayinanda taham asputta yam vai swadish nyopagatam tivajadaya Shrutva Swadamatyayam Anga Vanira Savikrama Putra Vadhepsur Ojasa Nishamya Nirvadam Apurvam Adbhutam Anta Sabayamana Tadar Tatpadam Vitadrasurina Surari Utapa Savikraman Putra Vadhe Surojasa Nishamya Niradam Apurvam Adbhutam Anta Sabayam Nada Darshatat Vitajrasuryena Suraya Tapa Savikraman Putra Vidhepsur Ojasa Nishamya Nirdam Apurvam Adbhutam Anta Sabayam Nadadrisha Tatpadam Vitata Suryena Surayutapa Sa He Hiranyakashipu Vikrama exhibiting his prowess Puchravada Ipsu desirous of killing his own son Ojasa with great strength Nishamya hearing Nirradam the fierce sound Apurvam never heard before Adbhutam very wonderful Anta Savyam Within the jurisdiction of the great assembly, not, the Darsha saw, Tat Padam, the source of that tumultuous sound, the Tat Rasu, became very afraid, Yena, by which sound, Shura Adi Yuta Pa, the other leaders of the demons, not only Hiranyakashipu. Translation and purports by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Being obsessed with anger, Hiranyakashipu, who was very great in bodily strength, thus chastised his exalted devotee son, Prahlad, with harsh words. Cursing him again and again, Hiranyakashipu took up his sword, got up from his royal throne, and with great anger struck his fist against the column. Then from within the pillar came a fearful sound, which appeared to crack the covering of the universe. Oh, my dear Yudhishthir, this sound reached even the abodes of the demigods like Lord Brahma. And when the demigods heard it, they thought, oh, now our planets are being destroyed. It's purport to 15. As we sometimes become very much afraid at the sound of a thunderbolt, perhaps thinking that our houses will be destroyed, the great demigods like Lord Brahma feared the thundering sound that came from the pillar in front of Hiranyakashipu. 16. While showing extraordinary prowess, Hiranyakashipu, who desired to kill his own son, heard that wonderful tumultuous sound, which had never been, which never before had been heard. Upon hearing the sound, the other leaders of the demigods were afraid. None of them could find the origin of that sound in the assembly. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains himself by saying, Asohamam Sukonteya Prabhasmi Shashi Surya Pranava Sarva Vedeshu Shabdake Parusham Nirshu. O son of Kunti, Arjuna, I am the taste of water, the light of the sun and the moon, the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras. I am the sound in ether and ability in man. Here the Lord exhibited his presence everywhere by the tumultuous sound in the sky, Shabda Ke. The tumultuous, thundering sound was proof of the Lord's presence. The demigods, like the demons, like Hiranyakashipu, could now realize the supreme ruling power of the Lord, and thus Hiranyakashipu became afraid. However powerful a man may be, he always fears the sound of a thunderbolt. Similarly, Hiranyakashipu and all the demons who were his associates were extremely afraid because of the presence of the supreme Shri Gurudev Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Shri Rasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we are entering the climax of the narration of this pastime, where Lord Nrsingadev is coming out of the pillar in order to kill Hiranyakashipu and all of the other demons. And as um, Lord Sringadev is appearing. Uh, the demons are becoming afraid. Not only the demons, the demigods also, but especially the demons were afraid that Lord Sringadev is coming forth from the pillar. And we will read in the rest of the chapter that Lord Sringadev will end up killing all these demons. And Prabhupada is making the point in the purport that uh, Hiranyakashipu and all of the demons were extremely afraid of the sound because they are always afraid of the presence of the Supreme Lord. Just like uh, the sound of thunderbolts can be very fearful. You know, one is out in a storm, uh, you know, in a field or something, or maybe up on a hill or a mountain, and there's a thunderstorm. That's a very fearful situation. I don't know if anybody has ever been close to a lightning strike. Um, I remember one time uh, I was riding in the car with um, my father, my brother, and then some friends. We're going to another city, so we were driving on the interstates. And it was during a storm. You know, there's the metal guardrails that are by the side of the interstates. Of course, metal conducts electricity, and um, lightning struck the metal guardrail that we were driving next to. And, you know, it was a very like jarring experience, right? Because, you know, if you think thunder is loud, um, you know, when it's miles away, it's extremely loud when you're right next to the source. And, you know, it's bright, and we were all just kind of like stunned for a moment, thinking, you know, what happened? Uh, so, yes, that's what the sound is being compared to, the sound of thunderbolts and the kind of fear or like the surprise that comes with that experience was what Hiranyakashipu and all the demons were experiencing. Uh, and, and we can understand also that even the modern day demons can have a similar experience. You know, in the purport, Prabhupada uh, quotes this verse from Bhagavad Gita, you know, Rasa Hamapsu Konteya, Prabhasmi Shashi Suryo, Pranava Sarvavedeshu, Shabbatake, Parusham Nirshu. That Krishna is telling Arjuna that he's the taste and water, he's the light of the sun and the moon, it's the Om and the Vedic mantras, sound and ability. And we also read elsewhere in Bhagavad Gita all the different manifestations of the Lord in the universe. Uh, you know, practically everything has some representation of the Lord. Every uh, mm, category of things has some representative of the Lord in it, uh, which is, you know, the most powerful or greatest member is the representative of Krishna. Uh, and we can understand, actually, that the presence of the Lord is attested to by everything. It doesn't actually take so much intelligence. You don't have to be a genius in order to see that there's some uh, designer or manager behind the material manifestation. Right? I was thinking the other day about the changing of the seasons. Right? So it is arranged by the Supreme Lord, as the insects come out from, their torpor or hibernation sort of period after the winter. There's dead leaves, organic matter all along the ground from the trees for them to eat, uh, while the trees are, regrowing and using that energy to grow new leaves, so that the cycle can continue. I was thinking, how could this show up by chance, right? That everything is arranged so that the cycle of the seasons just keeps going, with all of life, whether they, sleep for months or are active, are able to keep living in this way. Uh, so many examples, even just from, our biology, right? If something in our biology was just a little different, one gene was, a little, uh, wasn't activated the right way, then, there's no biology to speak of, right? Uh, and so many examples, for example, the idea of irreducible complexity, uh, that are biological systems that if you just change one little thing about them, then it wouldn't work, right? So, like, you can think of a poisonous snake or venomous snake. Uh, they have a special sac for the venom, so that they don't ingest their own venom and die. But which came first, the venom sac or the venom, right? Because if you don't have venom, what's the use of evolving a venom sac? Uh, but if you have venom and not the sac, then you won't have the chance to evolve it because you'll just poison yourself and die, right? So how could this thing evolve, right? And even on the genetic level, that is true. Sadhuputta Prabhu has a talk you can find on YouTube. It's actually given before the group at a biology conference. So it's a non-devotee audience, talking about um, even bacteria have this problem of irreducible complexity. That, if there's one small mutation, it doesn't fit in right. The viruses, and bacteria don't interact with the proteins, the different cells in the same way. Well, not explaining it very well, but then basically this idea is the same. That if there's just one mutation, then it doesn't doesn't work, right? Let alone the hundreds of mutations that would be needed to get from, small bacteria to human beings and elephants and all of these things. Actually, when Sadhuputta Prabhu was giving this talk, all of the biologists were very appreciative. They're like, oh, what you're pointing out, it was very nice, except for one who stood up and objected, because this one biologist could understand what the logical conclusion of Sadhuputta Prabhu's argument was, which is that there has to be a designer. Uh, this is just in the realm of biology. Even, in the realm of cosmology and physics, this is true as well. This is known as the problem of fine tuning. That if you take the physical constants, so the constants that appear in our equations, and change them even slightly, uh, then everything collapses. The um, just one constant, right? The cosmological constant, which is the energy of empty space. It was off even slightly, then the universe would either collapse in on itself or just fly apart so much that nothing would be able to form. The amount that this is fine tuned, the precision that you have to have, is equivalent to if I told you to pick one atom in the observable universe 2 million times every second, a specific atom that I'm thinking of in the observable universe, 2 million times every second since the start of the Big Bang, and you guessing right every time, is the same chances of this constant being this value by chance, right? Basically impossible. And that's one constant. And it takes 19 for the standard model. Uh, there's so many arguments like this. Even just the idea of life coming from life that Prabhupada stressed again and again, right? Because the moment that you accept that life comes from life, which is a scientifically established fact, we have never observed life coming from non-life, but we've always observed life coming from life, right? There's the whole idea that scientists have of abiogenesis, right? They say, oh, we're close to producing life in a laboratory, right? They've been saying that we're close since the 1950s, right? Since the 1950s, we say, oh, in 5 to 7 years, we'll be able to produce life in the laboratory. And in 2026, they're saying in 5 to 7 years, we'll be able to produce life in the laboratory. It's never been observed, right? It's considered the scientific view, but if science, as people always tell us, it's supposed to be based on observation and reason, all right, show me the observation that says life comes from matter. But we see every day that life comes from life, right? Women are having children, uh, birds are laying eggs, everything, all of these things, right? So you go with what the observation is, right? That's scientific. But if you take the chain back, right, there has to be an original life, which is God, right? So all of these arguments, you can go into all sorts of arguments for the existence of God, philosophical, scientific, etc. Then the question is that if these arguments are uh, true, if that's actually the case, and it's so obvious, why do people not accept, right? If you go to all of these big scientists, that go and give talk, especially to the public, like Neil deGrasse Tyson, all people like that, Lawrence Krauss, they are very against the idea of God, right? And even on, I was talking about abiogenesis just now. If you go and ask them, is it scientific that there's a designer for life or that life comes from the combination of chemicals? They'll say, oh, that is scientific, that life comes from the combination of chemicals, even though there's no proof whatsoever. Very good proof against, actually. Uh, but still they say, oh, that Big Bang, evolution, abiogenesis, consciousness coming from the brain, that all of these things are scientific. And things like reincarnation, that has very good evidence, scientific evidence behind it, is unscientific. So why do they say these things? And the answer Prabhupada is giving us in the purport. They are afraid of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They don't want there to be a supreme controller above them. Of course, I'm kind of simplifying it, and that we understand that there's different sorts of people. Some are just naive and bewildered by the demons and some are demons who are against totally the idea of the supreme personality of Godhead. And this is true in not just, in physics or biology, but actually in many realms of so-called scholarly work, that actually the institution, the system, is set up to mm, automatically reject all conclusions that would lead to the idea of a God. I was looking, uh, at a list of different biographies of Lord Chaitanya that are existent and that scholars have looked at. One is by Govinda, right, the servant of Lord Chaitanya who was traveling with him for some time, and specifically through the Jandakan, yeah, Jayakanda forest, where, of course, Lord Chaitanya made, tigers dance and, you know, trees and birds chant Hare Krishna and all these things. So the academics say that, oh, well, we don't know if this biography can be trusted, right? Because it has mythological things in it, right? As if so, and no matter what they put, as long as it has these things that are outside the experience of the academics and the historians, they will reject it, right? No matter what you put and how trustworthy a person is, and how good historically the evidence is, if it is fantastical or mythological, they will automatically reject it because otherwise they would have to accept God, right? If you look at the historical evidence, actually, like just from the uh, historiographical viewpoint, the first biographies of Lord Chaitanya were written very soon after his pastimes. Actually, some scholarly datings. This isn't, just devotees coming in and saying, this is academics. Actually put Murari Gupta's biography, the earliest dating is actually within the lifetime of Lord Chaitanya, right? So if anybody disagreed with it, if Lord Chaitanya himself disagreed with it, or any of his associates, or his mother or cousins or, family members thought it was embellishment, they could have said, this is, this is lying, right? But we don't see that happening, right? To compare, the Gospels were written 40 years, according to scholars, after the death of Jesus, right? Compare that uh, with, 5 years after or within the lifetime of the subject, right? Vrindavan Das Thakur had direct access to Lord Nityananda and the other associates of Lord Chaitanya, uh, who could tell him about the pastimes for Chaitanya Bhagavat. So very historically, actually, uh, rigorous. It's very close to the date, had eyewitnesses accounts, some biographies, like the Chaitanya Charitamrita, are partially based on the diaries of Swarup Damodar. Uh, so, like the Padacha, the notes or the diaries, is basically as good evidence as you can get. Because, somebody going, looking at the pastimes, going, that night and writing them down, right? But still, historians say, oh, it was just, some social, Lord Chaitanya is a social reformer who got deified and mythologized after his death, right? Because they can't accept that, uh, somebody could actually have mystic powers at all, or even be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Uh, and it's because of the demoniac mentality that, so much I have, so much more I will have later. Uh, my enemies are, I'll finish my enemies, I'll have so much wealth. This world is for my enjoyment. I'm the enjoyer and the proprietor. Because as soon as one actually accepts these things, whether through the historical or scientific accounts or higher knowledge through the various scriptures of the world that were given according to time, place, and circumstance. So, whether it's the highest scriptures like Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya, or even the scriptures that were given in other cultures, they all point to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in one way or another. What that means, if Krishna is the Supreme, that means I am not the Supreme. That means I won't accept. I just can't. Uh, so then I have to mentally speculate and come up with all of these reasons. And in many cases, what they come up with, especially in some fields, fundamental physics, cosmology, things like this, can be even more ridiculous than, um, even more outlandish sounding than, the idea of mystic powers or miracles, right? This one of the interpretations of quantum mechanics that has been, for some reason, uh, gaining popularity is what's called uh, the many worlds interpretation. Every time somebody takes a uh, quantum measurement, reality splits into parallel universes, where in one, if I measured spin up for a particle in another universe, uh, the other version of me measured spin down, right? So there's every time we take a measurement, I can just take a measurement and create branching of the universes. And a lot of people actually believe this. This is one of the major interpretations of quantum mechanics. I never really got into it uh, as it just sounded absurd even before I found Krishna consciousness. Um, but if one looks at some scientific papers that come out, it's as fantastical as Shastra, right? Uh, but the difference, of course, is that one, who we are hearing it from, because ultimately most of our knowledge is based on Shabda Praman, and I would trust Prabhupada over the academics any day. Uh, having known academics and having known devotees, I would say that the acharyas are much more trustworthy than the average academic. Of course, we do also have devotee academics who are very trustworthy, uh, but I was talking in general. And then also, we can actually form the experiment in the spiritual science ourselves. It is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita that the knowledge, devotional service, is the king of knowledge and the most secret of secrets, because it gives direct perception, pratyaksha, of the self. That if one practices devotional service, chants Hare Krishna, follows the principles of Vaidhi Bhakti, then one can actually perceive on one's own the spiritual nature of oneself and the world, that we are not this body, which is the preliminary or first realization of spiritual knowledge, and then eventually through study of the Shastras, uh, realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead uh, in truth. So it is not a question of faith or anything. It actually takes more faith to be a materialist than it does to be a devotee, because we are actually able to perform the experiments, and we can say, guarantee, that if you follow the rules and regulations and the process of devotional service, you will realize the same thing. Give it a year, even give it 90 days, right? Uh, but following actually the rules and regulations, then you will uh, make start making spiritual advancements. Uh, Even if you very seriously practice, four regs, reading 16 rounds, even for 90 days, then you will actually start realize Krishna. I'm sure all of us remember, his, people talk about it as well. When you first start practicing, many times Krishna gives you a lot of a big blast of uh, transcendental bliss to give you the taste for what is actually there, right? So anybody, uh, if you have anybody saying, when you're preaching or something, say like, oh, it's just faith-based, it's religion, just give them the challenge, 90 days, just 3 months, right? But do it seriously, right? Don't do it halfway. Just do it seriously, read, follow the four regs, chant Hare Krishna, uh, and then judge for yourself. And then even if they go away later, then in the future of this life or in the next life, they're 90 days closer to becoming Krishna conscious. Uh, and the academics, the historians or material cosmologists, all of these things, they can't say the same thing. They just say you just have to trust us. Uh, so we should present this knowledge very systematically, very scientifically, uh, and straightforwardly, uh, because otherwise, the madness the world that we see all around us will just continue, because all of these things are downstream, whatever we're talking about, government corruption, World War III, all of these things, it's downstream from demoniac philosophies, right? If we change the demoniac mentality, which is the mission of the Hare Krishna movement, uh, then all other problems will be solved. So we have about 15 minutes for comments or questions or complaints. Yes, 1, 3.
Thank you for very scientific.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Mhm.
So you mentioned that the scientists are not able to produce life from life,
Life from matter.
life from matter.
Yeah.
But for them, life, like if we say like even the human form, it's just like a bunch of chemicals that is only one life. There's no previous of reincarnation like that. It's
Mhm.
just like a bunch of chemicals. So wouldn't they, since they are not able to produce matter, life from matter, wouldn't they default to saying, okay, but we are actually creating life uh, out of a bunch of chemicals and products by, like, they are producing those sophisticated robots. Like, I've seen one time a short interview that was Tony Robbins with this lady that was actually a robot, but
Mhm.
she resembled like a human,
Yeah.
and the way they handled it was very intellectual and emotional conversation.
Mm.
So they may say, no, we actually are producing life.
Yeah. So basically, is ChatGPT conscious,
Yeah.
right? That's basically the question. Um, if one actually like looks if one interacts a lot with ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or all these things, one very quickly sees that it's not conscious. It's not thinking per se. It's uh, basically just calculating probabilities,
Mm.
right? So I actually several months ago at this point, I actually wrote an opinion piece for ISKCON News that talks about AI as a response to something else, but it talks about AI. And I was making the point that, predictive text in your phone, right? So, like if you type Hare, then it suggests Krishna. Uh, ChatGPT, Gemini, all these LLMs are exactly the same thing, just at a bigger scale, right? It's just using probabilities to guess what word comes next. It's not sitting there thinking like, should I use continuously or continually? Uh, it's just, uh, saying what's the most probable word that's coming next based on all of my training data, right? Uh, which isn't what consciousness, the experience of consciousness actually is, right? I'm not, you know, when I'm writing something, I'm not thinking of every word that I've seen before next to, uh, the word microphone or something, and then saying, oh, well, stand is the one that appears after microphone the most number of times, so it's probably stand, right? You know, I'm thinking, I'm thinking about what I'm talking about, right? If it's a microphone stand, like, if it's something that holds up a microphone, I'm thinking microphone stand. If it's something that plugs in, I'm thinking microphone cord, right? So I'm actually thinking, not just doing probabilities, right? So yeah, it's a long way to go for they can even claim that these LLMs and whatnot are conscious. Yeah, so still no life from matter.
Thank you so much for such wonderful spiritual science presentation.
Thank you.
It's just, it's just, you said everything was possible to say
Hmm.
about how material science is far beyond spiritual science. You beautifully presented that in spiritual science there are some things that cannot be comprehended by material limited mind,
Hmm.
but so-called science, material science, scientists who are claiming that this is my mythology or something that because we cannot explain this, they presenting themselves mythology, like some that like Big Bang, for instance,
Hmm.
from nothing, just all of a sudden,
Yeah.
appears something that exploded,
Hmm.
and then everything is in order. And nobody did this, that make it explode and everything is
Right.
normal. It's such fantasy.
Hmm.
And China cannot believe.
Yeah.
But still, they promoting this type of fantasy, thinking, claiming that this is scientific.
Hmm.
This is quite unbelievable, and you present that in such a wonderful, clear way.
Yeah.
So my mind sometimes, to rebelliousness and envy and demoniac tendencies think that, oh, there's no explanation actually. But you did in such precise way
Thank
that
you, Prabhu.
I'm just wondering. So there is such beautiful explanation. It's so clear, it's so obvious, it's so logical. So then why this crazy rebellious mind is constantly pushing us in this particular direction that no, just let me explain it. Because otherwise, I need to accept that I am not the supreme controlling the supreme enjoyer. Ah, so this is actually indicates contamination. So much contamination in our mind and our consciousness that forcing us just to be rebellious and doubtful until such spiritual scholar appears to just disappear all this, doubts and wow, it's such nice. This is awesome. So I would pray and pray to constantly have associations like wonderful scientific spiritualists.
Well, I'm praying to have the association of great saintly devotees like yourself. All right. Is there any questions or comments from our online audience?
Hare Krishna. I was wondering. Sorry, I'm in a little rush here, but I was
Yeah.
wondering, does this mean that everyone who believes in God that they shouldn't have these demoniac qualities explained in the 16th chapter? Like I'm trying to think because it seems like so many people are saying there is God, but at the same time displaying these like demoniac qualities.
So the idea is purification, right? So, it's been compared to a hospital, right? There's many sick people in the hospital, right? If you go to, a hospital or doctor's office and say, um, oh, these doctors are nonsense, right? There's so many sick people here. That's not very logical, right? Because the reason there are sick people there is because the doctors are there and they're going to be healed. But it's a process, right? There's generally not, like just automatically you go see the doctor and then the next day you're all better. Similarly, uh, it's a general process of purification by the various religious processes. Um, and these different purificatory processes can be found also in different paths. We understand the efficacy or potency can be different due to the different levels of knowledge that are there and levels of realization, with the highest, of course, being the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. But other processes can be there as well. We're not sectarian in saying that, it's our way or the highway, right? Um, but of course, in whatever tradition or whatever process you're doing, you have to properly perform the process, right? Uh, if you, uh, once again, to go with the uh, doctor analogy, if you get good advice from a doctor, whether it's a very expert doctor or a very novice doctor, if you don't follow the advice, you can't complain that you aren't getting better, right? You have to actually follow the process that you have accepted. Um, and then that process will actually purify one according to the level that that the specific process that one has chosen is able to do that. Uh, so yeah, it depends on the mentality of the practitioner on whether they're actually being cleared from these demoniac qualities or not. Right? If it's just a perfunctory thing, right? If it's just I go to the temple or a church or a synagogue or a mosque just as a social gathering. And, I don't really practice, but, I just go to, see and be seen. And because if I don't go to church, then, everybody in my community will start whispering about me and whatnot. That isn't, really taking up the process to rid you of the uh, demoniac propensities. But, if one uh, actually takes up the process as, revealed by Krishna or his representatives, then gradually one is purified. But even that might take time. So hopefully that answers the question. If they,
Yes, thank you. Thank you very
uh,
much.
if there's anything else in the last couple of minutes. All right. Going once, going twice. Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Uh, How you feeling?
See you in an evening on Salazar.
I just spoke to Jeff on the generation star. Yeah. Yeah. Passed away. Yeah, so hopefully by now I can start. Should be back next month. But I'm just traveling. That's why. Usually it's that. It's depends on the last prayer putting this, right? Because it's usually I'm taking a while to go to. But like the sign for things to be washed. But yeah, that's all. Yeah. Yeah. Jaya Radha Damodara Radha Jaya Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Radha Jaya Lalita Vishaka Lalita Vishaka Shringa Jaya Lalita Vishaka Lalita Lalita Vishaka Shringa Jaya Lalita Vishaka Lalita Vishaka Shringa Jaya Nitai Gora Sundar Nitai Gora Sundar Gora Hari Jaya Nitai Gora Sundar Nitai Gora Sundar Gora Hari Jaya Nitai Gora Sundar Nitai Gora Sundar Gora Prabhupada 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 Yes. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya 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 Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada,
Rama Rama Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Radha Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Radha Jaya Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Radha Lalita Vishaka Lalita Vishaka Sri Radhe Lalita Vishaka Lalita Vishaka Sri Radhe Nitai Gora Sundar Nitai Gora Sundar Gora Hari Nitai Gora Sundar Nitai Gora Sundar Gora Hari Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Prabhupada.
But if you have spiritual master, the only way to worship is to your devotional service. And the bachelor's low seat is great all reverence. By his grace, you can cross the ocean to yourself and obtain the mercy of Krishna. Now you live that our consciousness purified by the words emanating from his English mouth. Tap into your word of beauty perfection, fulfill all that I am. He opened my darkened eye and filled my heart with sentimental knowledge. He is my Lord, perfect the good. From him ecstatic bring means by him means is destroyer. May his Krishna sing with his cat. Our spiritual master is the illusion of mercy, a friend of the morning, Lord Master devoted. Oh Master, we listen to us. Give us the shade of your sea. Your fame is spread all over the three worlds. We take shelter from the earth. We will follow by Jai. Jai, Jai. Prabhupada,